all of you in this session of our map learning for upcoming prelims examination. I'll say as we are dividing our study into conventional and the contemporary aspect. Okay, going by the location rather than by size, I've given you that in terms of ranking in accordance to size, South America after North America makes up example of South America makes up example of fourth largest continent of the world. Okay, South America, the fourth largest continent of the world. And when I take up this continent, I have got comparatively larger number of countries to be handled, and how exactly we take up its demarcation and location. So using the political map, because it gives me the clarity about the location of the countries by default, and then eventually we'll be landing onto our physical map. So we all are aware of this becomes my Atlantic Ocean and this becomes my Pacific Ocean. But when I take reference of South America in terms of its location, I must be aware of certain defined waters that should be there into your recognition. So zooming it up here, we all know this is Isthmus of Panama, which we learned in the very first class of ours. Right there within Panama, considered to be connecting out North and South America, actually Central and South America, and have got Panama has got its international boundary with Colombia. The first thing that you have to take into consideration, Atlantic Ocean, Gulf of Venezuela. So this is my Gulf of Venezuela. One of the founding members of OPEC, Venezuela, with its crude oil assets, incorporate Gulf of Venezuela and Lake Maracaibo. These both are the significant locations relating to the crude oil production on the map of world. So Gulf of Venezuela is an important domain for you to be aware of. Of course, we are in Atlantic Ocean, we are going nowhere else. When I take up the demarcation of Gulf of Venezuela and make up my move towards south, what I'm noticing is this river, and I purposefully change the color to red. When I'm tracing this river is called Orinoco. You have to understand it very clearly. एक बहुत major myth जाता है इसके साथ, उस myth को clarify करो. River Orinoco and Orinoco mouth. So Orinoco mouth is in Atlantic Ocean, not in Gulf of Venezuela. सबसे पहली चीज तो ये justify कर ले. दूसरी चीज, when I take up river Orinoco, its flow is right there only in Venezuela, the oil producing country of South America. दूसरी चीज. तीसरी, Orinoco relates to Angel's Fall. It is Orinoco river system that belongs to Angel's Fall. क्योंकि अगर आप अपने स्कूल एटलस में भी थोड़ा ध्यान से देखेंगे, I purposefully change color so that I can mark up the river very clearly. I have got a very small river here. I think black will do better. A very small river here. उसका नाम है, I'm writing it here, Churun. इस river पर Angel's Fall है. So you have to take very carefully the understanding. मान लीजिए multiple choice question में you are encountered with the question about Angel's Fall, match the list, which of the given pair are correct or statement. So yes, it is done that Orinoco river system पर ही तो Angel's Fall है, but it is not on river Orinoco, it is on Churun, and Orinoco river draws boundary between Colombia and Venezuela, but has got its flow pattern right there in Venezuela. So Gulf of Venezuela के साथ आपने इसको associate कर दिया. Then we take our move towards east. I have got three very small countries, largely not taken into consideration that easily when it comes to South America. So Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana by default done. I take my step further east. I'm still there in Atlantic Ocean. Want to highlight this first. This is called Marajao Island, as claimed by Brazilian people, have been given recognition as peninsula, as all of you can easily see. The Marajao Peninsula is claimed by Brazil to be the largest island of the world. However, it is very clearly seen, as I have shaded it up, it makes the example of a peninsula, not an island. First thing. Second thing, Marajao Peninsula incorporate mouths of two rivers. अब rivers को हम red color से highlight कर रहे हैं, ध्यान से देखिएगा. और ये जो point है ना, इसको आपने ध्यान से समझना है. इस debate को एक final resting दे देते हैं, because it is important for us to understand that we cannot continue with this debate when it is multiple choice question that you are applying. पहले जिस रिवर का ज्यादा कुछ काम नहीं है उसको लेबल कर देते हैं. It is Tocantins River. Tocantins River is demarcating the estuarine boundary of Marajao Peninsula, claimed to be island by Brazil. It is not an island, as all of us can easily see. Now what you have to learn is careful with the names that I am writing. This river, which is draining in Peru, is called Ucayali, and Ucayali River is confluenced in Peru by a small river that rises from Ecuador. उस river का नाम है Napo River, Napo. अच्छा, जब हम claim करते हैं that Amazon, their confluence makes Amazon. Their confluence makes Amazon. Amazon, without any doubt, is the largest river of the world. We always encounter the expression of the debate that comes up with, is it the longest river? Longest river अभी तक stamped नहीं है officially. Longest river इसको तब debate किया जाता है when I take a source of river Amazon at Peru. माने आप उकायली से आप river Amazon को demarcate करें. But then it is officially identified that Napo and Ucayali confluences to make Amazon. So automatically Amazon ceases to be the longest river of the world. Largest river for sure, because it is draining maximum volume of water right there in Atlantic Ocean. And the other tributaries that you are noticing, because they have got the international extension, so should be considered. Colombia se Brazil, this is the very important tributary, we call it Negro. And the tributary that I'm noticing from Bolivia and is merging up with Amazon, we identify this river to be. Amazon is the river that rises in Peru. अब यही वाला confusion है ये. And it is confluence flow of Ucayali and Napo. So be very clear with it and justify that. अच्छा, what is the importance when I take up with Brazil? थोड़ा सा zoom out करके एक point बता दे रहे हैं. Brazil, the largest country of the continent. Brazil, which has got world's largest equatorial rainforest called selvas. Brazil is contemporary domain known for the collapsing of Pantanal Basin. Before I take you there, Pantanal Basin justify करने के लिए इन rivers को demarcate करना बहुत जरूरी है. Highlighting it on the political map because we have to understand new map that has been released about internationally flowing rivers and drawing the international boundaries. Okay, so comes in this river which is right there in Brazil, so I don't have to much take into consideration. इसको बोलते हैं Sao Francisco River, and I now want to label out these rivers, so be very cautious with them. International boundary drawing rivers है ना, इसलिए cautious होने के लिए बोल रहा हूं. And here we go. So this river is Parana and this river is Paraguay. Paraguay Parana river के साथ आपको पंटानल बेसिन के कोलैप्स का डोमेन जज करना है. सबसे पहले ये नोटिस कीजिए that Paraguay Parana river confluences right there at international boundary Paraguay and Argentina and have their mouth in what is called Rio de la Plata. ये बहुत important marginal water body है, because if you can see in your political map, I don't have the cities marked in this map and I purposefully selected it. I can certainly make out this river right here for all of us to see. River बनाया नहीं हुआ है, but I can Uruguay. So what I want all of us to notice is zooming it up थोड़ा सा and identifying right here and here. You can easily see two mega cities, Montevideo and Buenos Aires. Navigable harbor, riverine tidal ports, they are the important commercial centers of this particular continent. So Rio de la Plata अपने आप से important हो जाता है. Now what you have to understand very cautiously is this. I want to zoom up this part. You can see your physical map to identify it, but then first and foremost here, shading it up like this. Pantanal. I want to quickly get on to the physical map to give you the clarity. ये देखो ध्यान से यहाँ पर ये वाला point को justify कर रहे हैं. This is Pantanal Basin, जो plain area है. Pantanal Basin के साथ आपको क्या समझना है, बहुत ध्यान से justify करेंगे. Pantanal is world's largest wetland and it has been there in the news, so be very cautious with it. It's world's largest wetland that incorporate what is called flooded grasses. And this flooded grasses, एक general demarcation आता है ना, when we talk about wetland, given recognition in the Ramsar Convention, it gives me the understanding कि जरूर government custody में होगा. That is not the case. We have got more than 99% of its land privately owned. And that is the reason it is immensely being unsustaining in its utilization. Fire, unabated construction, destruction of ecological setup. Pantanal has been identified by United Nations Environment Program as the example of near collapsing wetland site. So Pantanal पर क्वेश्चन पूछा जा सकता है. अब इसमें एक क्वेश्चन ध्यान से रखना, फिजिकल मैप को ध्यान से देखेंगे, जिसको आप पंटानल बोलते हैं इन ब्राजील, उसी का जो एक्सटेंशन है, पर्पसफुली शेडिंग इट डिफरेंटली, उसी का जो एक्सटेंशन है, सारा लोलैंड जो आपको दिखाई दे रहा है, एंड यू कैन इजीली सी दिस इज इन्वॉल्विंग पैराग्वे एंड अर्जेंटीना. इसको ग्रैंड चाको बोलते हैं. ग्रैंड चाको in most of the school atlases are marked. Pantanal is Brazilian extension of Grand Chaco. And when I'm saying that it is the largest wetland of the world, I need to understand that I'm including it to be involving part of Grand Chaco also. लेकिन जो collapse की बात कर रहे हैं, जो privately owned characteristics की बात कर रहे हैं, that is in Brazil. So Pantanal is an important contemporary edge that you should keep in your mind when you are taking up the revision of Brazilian area, the largest country of this particular continent. Pantanal की characteristics को judge करें. Going back where I have labeled up the rivers, so ध्यान से देख लो. Pantanal is the flooded areas that incorporate river Tocantins, river Paraguay, river Parana, and very clearly this is where we are having the flooded grassland applied. Before I change over from Brazil to any other country, carefully see this largest country of this continent shares international boundary with almost every country, barring the exception of. इस तरह के questions आ जाते हैं आपके map पर, and you should be in the position of handling it. So Brazil, the largest country of this continent, shares international boundary with all the other countries of the continent, barring the exception of Ecuador and Chile. And when I take up Chile as randomly picked up, before I take you to Argentina, तो zoom up कर देते हैं यहाँ पर, ध्यान से देखते जाओ and understand करो. Chilean territory को जब आप justify कर रहे हैं, you need to take up this. है तो बहुत छोटा सा, बाकी आप सारे देखें, these are islands, you don't need to remember these islands. ये बिल्कुल वही वाला एग्जाम्पल है डाल्मेशियन शोरलाइन, जो कल आपको बताया था अलेक्जेंडर आर्चिपेलागो एंड क्वींस चार्लोट आर्चिपेलागो के लिए. Why I am shading this up? Again, ये बड़ा ही contemporary domain of demarcation है. I hope all of us are aware of the fact that with India and Australia bringing that critical minerals into the strategic ties to somewhere minimize the monopoly of China, because these critical minerals are evolving out to be very significant in the medicine, in the batteries and etc. So medical treatment more specifically, when I take up the reference of uranium and all. So ये peninsula का पहले नाम लिख देते हैं, because this is important for us to take into consideration. The peninsula is called Tatao Peninsula. So I spell it out here. Chilean Tatao Peninsula is identified with, I just want to remove this. Chilean Tatao Peninsula is identified with one of the world's richest lithium. When I take up into account the critical minerals production. So Tatao Peninsula is important हो गया. Consider the following statement, which of them is correct in regards to the present purview. So Tatao Peninsula, हम normally इसको miss out कर देते हैं because we largely take into consideration island. So this is peninsula, और peninsula के north में आपको ये जो सबसे बड़ा वाला island दिख रहा है, ये name comes up very easy because you are in Chile and this island is called Chiloé Island. I think इससे ज़्यादा कुछ यहाँ याद रखने की जरूरत नहीं है, बहुत minimal है. Lithium के recognition with critical minerals coming into limelight because of India and Australia का strategic ties has made Tatao Peninsula coming into forefront. अच्छा, Chilean territory की जब हम बात करते हैं तो normally Chile has been conventionally known for its copper production, trans-Indian rail route, and what has been given the recognition as the rail route on clouds. So if I just ask you to take up the demarcation of it, It is Antofagasta, roughly here. So this place also should be there in your information list. Antofagasta. This is for copper. So एक Chilean domain का एक prominence है आपके सामने that you have to take into consideration. When we take up the account of this, you have to justify the orientation of the location. Otherwise, with Chile, how we moved on to Chile, when we were taking up the reference of Atlantic Ocean, Brazil, the largest country, do not share international boundary with Chile and Ecuador, and Chilean Tatao Peninsula is definitely significant domain. Coming on to Argentina, I've already given you this Rio de la Plata, and if I ask you to pick up this river, which is very strongly highlighted right here, इस river का नाम है कोलोराडो, और ध्यान से याद रखेंगे, thus we have got 3 Colorado rivers on the map of world. 2 तो USA में ही हैं, एक को तो हमने कल लर्न करा था, दूसरा गल्फ ऑफ मेक्सिको में छोटा सा रिवर है, and second river Colorado is right here. When I take Argentina into consideration, I identify with Chile, of course. I have talked about it in the very first class. तो इस वाले एरिया को शेड अप कर देते हैं to represent Argentina, and इसको शेड अप कर देते हैं to represent Chile. So this is my Terra del Fuego, this is my Magellan Strait, and Terra del Fuego marks its political divide between both Chile and Argentina. थोड़ा सा zoom up करके एक point और बता दे रहे हैं. It is in Chilean territory that you have got Punta Arenas, that is considered to be the commercially sound location in providing on transshipment movement. वो इतना major नहीं है यहाँ पर, but it is the commercially sound center in the natural transit that is connecting Pacific and Atlantic Ocean. So Punta Arenas falls in Chilean territory, not in Argentina. And when I take reference of Terra del Fuego as is visible here, we have got its political dimension both in Argentina and Chile. Beyond that, if I have to take up the reference of what is easily visible here, so I should not be emphasizing, Falkland is the UK territory. It's an island that belongs to Atlantic Ocean, and I'm zooming it out. Now, as I zoom it out, what you have to take into consideration very cautiously, जैसे कल भी बताया था Central American countries के लिए, because with United States of America, Canada like country problem नहीं होता. यहाँ पर ध्यान से देखेंगे, यही वाला लीड लेकर चलना है. The countries with Brazil do not share international boundaries done. अब इसके बाद जब आप जज करना शुरू करते हो तो नोटिस करेंगे Ecuador, Peru, Chile are the countries that have got their shoreline only with the Pacific Ocean. ठीक है. अच्छा, इसके बाद बाकी अब जब कंट्रीज को सेलेक्ट करो, जैसे आपने कोलंबिया को करा, तो कोलंबिया का आप नोटिस करोगे पैसिफिक एंड अटलांटिक दोनों के साथ जा रहा है. सो ये वाला जस्टिफिकेशन ध्यान से ले लेना एंड चार्ट इट आउट. सो हाउ आई एम लिस्टिंग द कंट्रीज व्हेन इट कम्स टू देयर लोकेशन, दैट कोलंबिया इज द कंट्री ऑफ साउथ अमेरिका दैट कैन बी रिलेटेड टू इट्स शोरलाइन विद बोथ पैसिफिक एंड अटलांटिक. बाकी जब आप इक्वाडोर की बात करो, पेरू की बात करो, चिली की बात करो, इट हैज गॉट इट्स शोरलाइन विद पैसिफिक, and rest of the countries by default will have its shoreline with Atlantic. और ध्यान से देखेंगे, जब rest of the countries having their shoreline with Atlantic की बात करोगे, तो don't miss out on Bolivia and Paraguay that are landlocked countries. मेरे ख्याल से इससे ज्यादा political dimension में कुछ खास required नहीं है. I have got one more contemporary item that I have to talk about. I'm just getting on there. So South America as a landmass, for the largest, incorporate these prominent constituents in terms of their location. And when I try to justify their locational characteristics, I can certainly take into account the demarcation. I'm just adding on there. I can certainly take on the demarcation of the account of locational purview. Chilean territory will have Atlantic touch as Magellan Strait. So be very cautious in picking up that. So yes, Chile can also be matched up with both Atlantic and Pacific, but with Magellan Strait, जिसको हमने पहले emphasis में दे दिया. Argentina, of course, can be correlated with the Atlantic Ocean orientation, because थोड़ा सा यहाँ पर zoom up करके देखें तो हमारे पास अर्जेंटीना का टेरिटोरियल स्ट्रेच Magellan Strait के beyond नहीं दिखाई देता. तो चिली को आप definitely दोनों oceans के साथ add on कर सकते हो. Now, before I get on to one more important item in the political map, यहाँ पर ले जाते हैं physical map पर लेकर. This is what I said a minute back. Pantanal के immediate north में This is selvas. The Amazon basin of Brazil is identified to be selvas. बड़ा common सा factor है, कुछ नया नहीं. Why it is so important? It has become important again because of the contemporary domain. And what is that contemporary domain that I'm talking about? It's state of world forest, जो report release हुई है 2022 में. It is a flagship publication of Food and Agriculture Organization. 2022 में जो publish हुई है. It has re-established Brazilian forest area to be second largest in world after Russian Federation. So selvas is principally contributing to 12% of global forest cover. And we all are aware of the fact that it is majorly equatorial rainforest. So one of the densest forests that has been identified. So Brazil as a second principal area of the world forest, state of world forest, सब कुछ वही conventional है. There has been more than 10% decline in the area of forest. Russian Federation को सबसे top rank दिया है in terms of area. Comparison कुछ भी नहीं है. When I say Brazil is accounting for 12%, Russia is correlated with 20%. तो area wise तो Russia का domain है, but then when I take up Russian forest is largely taiga, and equatorial rainforest is in Brazil, which has got vertical canopy. तो carbon sequestration के लिए ज़्यादा dominant role definitely selvas का है. And when we take up the reference of this selvas and its quality factor, it is something that has been challenged largely with the reference of infectious disease and of course Brazilian forest fire. So this is the reason that I can see कि भाई Tocantins river को भी, या we can have Amazon river basin या Pantanal, they are something important that you can justify in terms of the contemporary domain in this particular continent. As we are on the physical map, I want to quickly take up the reference of one more important thing. I want to take a ticker marker and ask you to understand. इनको हम बोलते हैं Cordilleras, because we have got at least 3 parallel running mountain ranges, and it is a myth for us to identify that it is only one range. Of course, just like Indian mountain range, it eventually converges out to become one. And here you have got the plateau called Patagonia Plateau. So Patagonia Plateau is an important tableland that is identified in this region. This is Andean Cordilleras or Andean mountains, just in reference to western mountains of North America. Youngfold mountain hai, circum-Pacific belt mein hai. That is the reason we are having all this as Dalmatian shoreline. ये आपको बता दिया था, Tatao Peninsula है. What you have to take into consideration is this Lake Titicaca. Writing it here. You can easily see that in your school atlases. Lake Titicaca is the largest freshwater lake of this country, and it is highest navigable lake of the world. Bolivian plateau पर ये belong करता है, and Bolivian plateau identifies its name from Bolivia. But you need to understand that Lake Titicaca extends in 2 countries. If I just go back here, यहाँ पर थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा hodgepodge हो गया, यहाँ दिखाई दे जाएगा. यहाँ पर देखो, ये मेरा Lake Titicaca है. You can easily see that Lake Titicaca has Bolivian and Peru, दोनों पर extension है इसका. So this is important domain for you to take into account as physiographic feature. So when it comes to lake, I need to understand very important right here. So you all can see this is Lagos Patos and this is Lagos Marine. So I'm writing their name. It's Patos and this is Mirim. ये दोनों के दोनों lagoon lakes. I can easily make you see this, and that is the reason I have selected out political map. Lagoon lakes. Lake Mirim, territorial stretch Uruguay included. Lake Patos in Brazil. They are the big size lagoon lakes identified in this continent. Need to understand, not as big as Lake Maracaibo, जहां से शुरुआत करी. So Lake Maracaibo is the largest lagoon lake, salt water lake, and Titicaca, freshwater lake. Other lagoon lakes do incorporate Lake Patos and Lake Mirin. I think this is the sufficient demarcation. I want to use the same map, making up a very different bolder marker altogether. जब आप लोकेशन की बात करें, आपको क्या चीज मिस नहीं करना है वो ध्यान से देखो. एक बहुत जनरल डिमार्केशन के साथ चल रहे हैं. आई थिंक दैट विल सफाइस. So this is how I mark it here. 23.5 degrees south. Tropic of Capricorn passes via 4 countries of this continent: Chile, Argentina, Paraguay and Brazil. Map पर एक बार demarcate कर लीजिए, it will be easily done. I am repeating, the 4 countries via which 23.5 degrees south. So we are talking about Tropic of Capricorn. And one more latitude traverses via this country, and that is equator. Equator के लिए एक बड़ा important domain judge करो और बहुत ध्यान से judge करो, that when I draw equator, roughly right here, एक ध्यान से notice कर लेना है, वेनेजुएला नहीं टच करता इक्वेटर. वेनेजुएला को आप इक्वेटर में जस्टिफाई नहीं करवाते हैं. You have to justify equatorial extension with Ecuador 1, Brazil 2 as very important demarcation, and of course Colombia 3. 3 countries. Venezuela nahi. Equator 0 degrees latitude is not involving Venezuela. Ecuador, Colombia, Brazil. दूसरी तरीके से largest country of this continent, Brazil, have both the major latitude traversing via it. Equator भी traverse कर रहा है and Tropic of Capricorn भी traverse कर रहा है. This is what you can take up into account. And as I am marking this, I just get on to the other map. यहाँ पर थोड़ा ज़्यादा hodgepodge हो गया. Zooming it up, I just want to remove Russia from here. बहुत ध्यान से देख लेंगे इसको. One of the most prominent world biodiversity hotspot, Galapagos Island. This is the Galapagos Island. It belongs politically to Ecuador. Galapagos Island is equatorial island. So isko bhi consider karo, to we are left out with 3 countries only via which we are having equator traversing. So when I get on to the study relating to South America, we justify these to be the important domain. एक चीज को हमेशा ध्यान रखना, Amazon River is largest, not the longest. Amazon River is longest when I am not giving recognition to Ucayali River, and that is wrong. Second thing, when I take up reference of Idi Marjao, it's a peninsula, not an island. These are the 2 controversial things I'll say. Unnecessary debates are being there. Official recognition is what we should follow in demarcating the region altogether. When I take reference of South America as the territorial stretch or its physiographic domain with the contemporary edge, these are the important aspects that we can apply. And yes, when we have taken up the reference of longitude and time, I think it comes very easy. जो सबसे बड़ा कंट्री है यहाँ का ब्राजील, उसके साथ आप मैक्सिमम 4 टाइम जोन एसोसिएट करते हो. That can be a reminded factor that you can justify. And these 2 islands you can take into consideration to interpret. हम Antarctica को थोड़ा अलग से recognition देंगे अपने study में. Because of Falkland Island and South Georgia Islands, the dependencies of United Kingdom, the territories of United Kingdom for that matter, is the reason United Kingdom do have got its claim of sovereign rights in the territorial waters of Antarctica. So we can utilize that later on. अभी के लिए we are having these demarcation. और ये सारी demarcation बहुत important है. As we are taking up this peninsula here, Tatao Peninsula, इसकी requirement तो इसलिए जरूरी है क्योंकि we are having the lithium development. इसी के पैरेलल में अर्जेंटीना में ये बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग सा पेनिनसुला आपको दिखाई दे रहा है. ये पेनिनसुला भी अपने नॉलेज में डाल लीजिए. It is Valdez Peninsula. This peninsula is also recognized to be the resource-rich region, largely incorporating the resources in as coking coal variety. Contemporary नहीं है, काफी conventional dimension है. तो Valdez Peninsula of Argentina and Tatao Peninsula of Chilean territory. This is how you demarcate it out. International boundaries forming streams, we have taken up into understanding. This is South America for us. South American regions incorporate these physiographic constituents. And when I take up the reference of Angels Fall, ओरिनोको रिवर को चुरुन रिवर के साथ एसोसिएट करके जस्टिफाई करेंगे. आई थिंक दिस इज डन. ब्राजील को आपको सबसे ज्यादा फोकस में रखना है, बोथ बिकॉज ऑफ अमेजन सेल्वास फॉरेस्ट रिपोर्ट के लिए, स्टेट ऑफ फॉरेस्ट रिपोर्ट, एंड पंटानल कोलैप्स के लिए. चिली बिकॉज ऑफ द लिथियम रिसोर्सेस. I want to move into the next continent of our study, and that is Africa. अफ्रीका की स्टडी में हमें काफी मेजर डेविएशंस हैंडल करने पड़ेंगे, बिकॉज अफ्रीका विदाउट एनी डाउट गोज अप विद द डोमेन ऑफ continent that is considered to be centrally located, the centrally most located continent of the world. यहीं से शुरुआत करते हैं. So do open up your map of Africa in front of you, and if I ask you to take up the second largest continent of the world, इसमें मुझे आपको दो चीजें समझानी है. कंटेम्पररी डायमेंशंस में अफ्रीका से लेकर यूरोप तक काफी बल्की इंफॉर्मेशन है, and these two continents by themselves are also very bulky. So we are trying to take up the conventional, wherever it is coming up, I'll be adding on the contemporary point. Okay, why the second largest continent of the world, Africa, is considered to be centrally located continent. It is called so because this continent have both 0 degrees latitude and longitude traversing via it. I think you are understanding it. Its equator as well as prime meridian that marks up its traversing via this continent. That is the reason it is called centrally located. So I might encounter a question which is asking me to take into consideration centrally located continent of the world. So I can easily take this particular continent to our consideration with a logic. So you have to take up the interpretation of this that time. Okay, now when I take up continent of Africa, what exactly we need to take into account? अब ये बड़ा मोज़ाक of countries होता है, एक दो countries का domain नहीं है. नॉर्थ अमेरिका में we had very limited, साउथ अमेरिका still manageable, यहाँ पर बहुत सारे हैं. So we take the understanding of each of the country and their locational characteristics with the grouping, but before that let us try to be cautious with locational dimension. तो काफी सारे countries के नाम आसानी से याद हो जाएंगे. So we are taking up the reference of location of Africa. तो शुरुआत करते हैं इधर से. Centrally located continent of the world has got its shoreline with Mediterranean Sea. अच्छा, Mediterranean Sea आज की डेट में sufficient नहीं है, because you need to understand that this particular area, that is Mediterranean Sea, have been the area of contemporary information massively in the last 1 year. One way or the other, we have been subjected to Mediterranean shoreline because of geopolitical, economic and many more reasons. तो जब मेडिटेरेनियन सी अफ्रीकन शोरलाइन के पर्सपेक्टिव में करो तो कम से कम इसमें दो चीजें ऐड कर लेंगे. सिर्फ अफ्रीकन पर्सपेक्टिव में बता रहे हैं, एशियन और यूरोपियन में फिर इवेंचुअली ऐड करेंगे. सो विद लिबिया, सो मेडिटेरेनियन सी शोरलाइन के साथ नोटिस कर लेंगे, विद लिबिया गल्फ ऑफ सिदरा एंड विद टूनिशिया गल्फ ऑफ गेब्स. पहले तो ये दोनों मार्जिनल वाटर बॉडीज आपके नॉलेज में होनी चाहिए. जैसे ये आपकी नॉलेज में आ गई, यू कैन इजिली नोटिस that the countries as Egypt, countries as Libya, Tunisia have their shoreline with Mediterranean Sea. थोड़ा सा zoom out करके मोरक्को एंड अल्जीरिया को भी ले लेते हैं. So Mediterranean Sea के साथ shoreline मतलब these countries, मोरक्को, अल्जीरिया, टूनिशिया, लिबिया, इजिप्ट. तो एक कैटेगरी डिमार्केट हो गई जिसको हम कह सकते हैं नदर्न अफ्रीकन कंट्रीज. नहीं तो नेम्स ऑफ कंट्रीज हैंडल आउट करना थोड़ा सा डिफिकल्ट काम हो जाता है. सो विद लिबिया, विद इजिप्ट, आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड लिबिया गल्फ ऑफ सिदरा एंड टूनिशिया गल्फ ऑफ गेब्स. व्हाट यू हैव टू टेक अप फर्स्ट बिफोर आई मूव ऑन फर्दर, इसको जूम अप कर देते हैं, इसको हाईलाइट करके इधर लिख देते हैं स्ट्रेट ऑफ जिब्राल्टर. And when I take up Strait of Gibraltar, यहाँ पर basically आप Gibraltar as a very small territorial stretch की बात करते हो, Spanish and UK domain पर. that I'll be talking about when I take you to Europe. Strait of Gibraltar for us is the strait that links Atlantic Ocean and Mediterranean Sea. So you have to be very clearly taking up that Strait of Gibraltar is relating to the shoreline of Morocco. More specifically, we can take up the territorial stretch of Spain and United Kingdom, Strait of Gibraltar relating there, as we'll get on to map of Europe. So Morocco को आप सिर्फ मेडिटेरेनियन सी नहीं, अटलांटिक ओशन के साथ भी एसोसिएट कर रहे हो, नदर्न अफ्रीकन कंट्रीज. इफ आई हैव टू थिंक बियॉन्ड, एज आई टेक अप द रेफरेंस ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर सेटअप, कितने रिवर, कितने कंट्रीज क्रॉस अप करते हैं, बिकॉज न्यू मैप हैज इवॉल्व्ड. रिवर्स बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हो गए हैं स्टूडेंट्स, इसको एकदम स्ट्रॉन्ग कंसिडरेशन के साथ रिविजन में लेना चाहिए. सो बिफोर आई टॉक अबाउट दोज सेटअप, क्योंकि आप इजिप्ट की बात कर रहे हैं, तो इजिप्ट की बात करते समय सबसे पहले पिकअप करते हैं इजिप्शियन टेरिटरी में ये जो लेंदीएस्ट रिवर ऑफ द वर्ल्ड है. अब इसमें आपको थोड़ा सा कॉशियस होना पड़ेगा. लेट मी मेक माय मार्कर थिकर ताकि वो थोड़ी आसानी से मेरे को हेल्प कर दे इन डिमार्केटिंग द एरिया. सो बी कॉशियस. थोड़ा सा जूम आउट कर रहे हैं. नोटिस एंड नोटिस इट वेरी केयरफुली, बिकॉज वही वाला कंफ्यूजन है. अगर आप उकायली को कंसिडर करो तो फिर अमेजन को आपने लेंदीएस्ट रिवर बना दिया. So when I take this river, lengthiest river of the world, I mark it to be making its beginning right here, Lake Victoria, Uganda. यहां से शुरू करो इसको. आप जब रिवर नाइल के बारे में बात करते हैं, you take up the reference of Lake Victoria and its source domain. It has to be Kampala के इधर से. So you have to notice that lengthwise there is no debate. River Nile rises from Lake Victoria, and River Nile rising from Lake Victoria definitely have got lengthier than Amazon. So आप अगर River Nile का justification लो तो it is Uganda, South Sudan, Sudan and Egypt. जब आप उसकी tributaries का reference लेते हो, then Ethiopia like countries are included. So be very cautious. River Nile मतलब लेक विक्टोरिया वाया युगांडा, साउथ सुडान, सुडान टू इजिप्ट. आई वांट टू कंसंट्रेट ऑन इजिप्ट फॉर द टाइम बीइंग. जैसे ही आप रिवर नाइल, द लेंदीएस्ट स्ट्रीम ऑफ द वर्ल्ड के बारे में बात करते हो इजिप्शियन टेरिटरी में, यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड टू थिंग्स. नंबर वन, राइट हियर, आई जस्ट वांट टू चेंज द कलर. राइट हियर you have got your Aswan Dam, you have got Lake Nasir. So Lake Nasir को तो आप political boundary between Egypt and Sudan के साथ associate कर सकते हो, but it is River Nile that is actually demarcating Egyptian desert as eastern and western desert. Sahara desert को आप eastern western desert में demarcate करते हो in Egypt, with east having very small extension and west having bigger extension in reference to River Nile. सबसे पहली चीज ये. दूसरी चीज, it is eastern desert. So I just zoom it up here, I make it a black color marker and demarcate it out here. Color political map में सिर्फ इसलिए इस्तेमाल होते हैं ताकि हमें क्लैरिटी के साथ समझ में आए. This is Sinai Desert. So कई बार क्वेश्चंस कुछ इस तरह से पूछे जाते हैं कि जिसको जज करना थोड़ा सा मुश्किल हो जाता है. पहली चीज नोटिस करेंगे, Sinai Desert is extension of eastern desert of Egypt, number one. Unlike eastern desert of Egypt, Sinai Desert incorporate its extension in neighboring Israel. You can easily see this is the territorial stretch of Israel if I just put some red dots to it. So Sinai Desert का कुछ extension मुझे इजराइल में भी दिखाई देता है. Consider the following statement, which of them are correct, you can encounter it. What is the reason we are having the prominence of this location is no prize for guessing kind of a thing. Right here, Isthmus of Suez, dragged as Suez Canal. So कुछ चीजें बड़े specific तरीके से decide हो गई यहाँ पर. Suez Canal is the reason that Sinai Desert is practically segregated from eastern Egyptian desert. Suez Canal links Mediterranean Sea with Indian Ocean via Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. सो पहली चीज आपको ये दिमाग में रखनी है। दूसरी चीज आपको ये दिमाग में रखनी है that it is in the western Egyptian desert, that it is in the western Egyptian desert. You identify the territorial stretch of right here. अगर आपके पास स्कूल atlas हैं तो there are school atlases which are giving it the reference. It is Katara depression, some 133 meters below mean sea level. Katara depression is identified to be one of the significant physiographic constituent in western Egyptian desert. Eastern Egyptian desert में क्या आ गया? Suez Canal. And Egypt और सूडान की इंटरनेशनल बाउंड्री पर आ गया आसवान डैम, लेक नासिर. Nasir Lake या Lake Dam Aswan is nothing new. It is considered to be one of the very prominently utilized water for irrigation and all in Egypt. Egypt is known for its wheat cultivation and long staple cotton cultivation. Egyptian Aswan Dam and Nasir Lake is a significant constituent for us to apply. जब आप यहां से थोड़ा वेस्ट की तरफ चलते हो, यू एंटर लिबिया. नाम लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है, वो उसको लिबियन डेजर्ट बोलते हैं. Libyan desert without any doubt is coming up with the name of the country. Sahara desert का extension है. So I don't need to talk about much for it. But yes, I definitely will take up the reference that with Libyan desert in the coastal area where you are having the capital city of Libya. So right here, Tripoli, ये सारे coastal plains को आप Tripoli Tenia बोलते हैं. And mind it, they are very important because of the geopolitical tug of war and the affiliations that are going on as per Turkish and Greece controversies in regards to the island sovereign rights on the Aegean islands and the grouping and the affiliations that are evolving on. So when I'll talk about those affiliations, I should not be struggling with these Tripolitania and etc. Tripolitania are the coastal plains that we identify. And once I cross Libya, I get on to the countries like Tunisia, Morocco, and Algeria. So I draw the boundary line like this, and I very clearly say they are Mediterranean climate and not desert, barring the exception of southern Algeria. Southern Algeria में पूरा desert है, Algerian desert बोलते हैं इसको. Algerian desert में one of the strategic mineral resource का जो बहुत strong demarcation है, उसको आप justify करेंगे. So I'm talking about that. It is again lithium. अभी थोड़ी देर पहले आपको बताया we are having on the critical minerals coming into the strategic limelight. That is the reason we took the reference of the peninsulas in both the domain, Chilean and the Argentine domain. बिल्कुल उसी domain पर. Southern Algeria is Sahara desert. Algerian desert बोल दो. Northern Algeria में नहीं है. Algerian desert में we have justified one of the rich lithium resource location. With the critical minerals coming into limelight, this automatically becomes prominent. And when I take up the reference of Morocco, which is also Mediterranean climate, and I've told you that this Mediterranean climate has got Mediterranean sea shoreline and Atlantic Ocean, यहाँ पर आप demarcate कर सकते हो phosphate rocks. ये सारे questions बिल्कुल आराम से बन सकते हैं आपके contemporary age में. Until unless you match it up somewhere, it becomes difficult for you to remember. So when I take the critical minerals in this particular continent's northern area, मुझे कुछ contemporary age मिल गया Algeria के लिए. Algeria is the only country in northern Africa that can be divided into both Mediterranean and desert climate. So जब आपको कहा जाए Algerian desert, तो आप by default southern part पर हैं. Northern part is Mediterranean, and it is with Algerian desert that we have taken up the lithium resources. It goes with, see the physical map. I also open that. Name तो नहीं लिखा होता, बहुत छोटा सा नाम है, but still it gives me the justification. Here, right here. ये वाला area. This patch. We identify this to be Aghar mountain. Lithium. Conventionally known for iron ore. This is how we have taken. As I have hodgepodged political map a lot, यहाँ पर थोड़ा सा political boundary दिखाई दे ही रहा है, फटाफट से डिमार्केट आउट करते हैं इंपॉर्टेंट latitude right here in this location. So when I take up Tropic of Cancer, ध्यान से देखेंगे, सेंट्रली लोकेटेड कॉन्टिनेंट की बात कर रहे हो, ट्रॉपिक ऑफ कैंसर को मार्क कर रहे हैं. सो हियर वी बिगिन विद वेस्टर्न सहारा, एड मॉरिटेनिया, इनकॉर्पोरेट एल्जीरिया. थोड़ा सा रीएडजस्ट करेंगे क्योंकि मुझे इसको नाइजर के साथ एसोसिएट करना है. नाइजर को हम टच करेंगे बस. सो आई जस्ट वांट टू मेक इट थिकर. चलो, बिगिनिंग फ्रॉम वेस्टर्न सहारा, सदर्न पार्ट से, इनकॉर्पोरेटिंग मॉरिटेनिया, आइडेंटिफाइंग माली टू बी इंक्लूडेड, एंड देन आई एम टचिंग ये वाला चीज, जैसे हमने कल आपको क्यूबा में भी समझाया था, that you have to be cautious with the demarcation of the boundary. ये टच कर रहा है सिर्फ नाइजर को. And then I continue and I demarcate out Libya by default and Egypt. 23.5 degrees north. Tropic of Cancer passes via Western Sahara, Mauritania, Mali, Niger in a box, Libya and Egypt. अब इसी को आप एक्सटेंड करोगे आगे तो आप एशिया में जाएंगे. We'll be talking about that later. Now, when I ask you to recall the 3 countries that you have associated with South America, when it comes to Tropic of Capricorn, I can have its continuity right here in southern part of Africa as well. So, अभी Tropic of Cancer की अगर हम बात करते हैं तो Tropic of Cancer का demarcation आपने ले लिया Mexico, Bahamas and Cuba in a box, नॉर्थ अमेरिका में, और यहां पर वेस्टर्न सहारा, मॉरिटेनिया, माली, Algeria, Niger in a box, Libya and Egypt. So this is an important cardinal that we take. And roughly speaking, very roughly speaking, Tropic of Cancer draws the boundary between Northern Africa and rest of Africa. That is where we have learned Western Sahara, Morocco, Northern Algeria, Tunisia, Libya and Egypt. वेस्टर्न सहारा को हमने बाय डिफॉल्ट काइंड ऑफ ऐड कर लिया मोरक्को के एक्सटेंशन में, और जब मोरक्को के एक्सटेंशन में ऐड कर रहे हो तो बस एक रिमाइंडर ले लेना, वेस्टर्न सहारा और मोरक्को की इंटरनेशनल बाउंड्री के साथ ही आप डिमार्केट आउट कर लेते हो these are Atlas Mountains. Atlas Mountains marks their confinement in 3 countries, Tunisia, Algeria and Morocco. And I've already talked about Strait of Gibraltar, so I don't need to speak about that any further. And anything else that I can add on as I just complete out this particular group. तो ये आपको छोटे-छोटे islands दिखाई दे रहे हैं. इन सारे islands को आप बोलते हो Canaries Island, and they belong to Spain. So they are Spanish islands. Northern Africa demarcating its shoreline with the Mediterranean Sea. Perfect. It is also having its shoreline with Atlantic Ocean. Excellent. Egypt have its shoreline with Gulf of Suez and Red Sea as well. तो ये चीज को जरा बहुत ध्यान से नोटिस करेंगे, because these create trouble when you are right there in your examination hall. और ये एरिया बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है स्टूडेंट्स. इस समय के लिए ये एरिया मेरे ख्याल से सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है. Mediterranean, and when I say Red Sea and Gulf of Suez, I'm by default getting into Indian Ocean domain. Western Sahara को हमने incorporate कर लिया in our list of demarcation. Western Sahara is this boundary line. यहाँ पर थोड़ा सा. So lithium resources is what we have taken among the critical resources of the reference, not just with southern Algeria, essentially relating to Aghar mountain, but also Tatao Peninsula, that is with Chile. I'll be continuing on with the map of Africa, centrally located. आपको एक river, lengthiest river, क्योंकि I had to take Nile River in demarcating the 2 deserts and distinguishing Sinai Desert. यहाँ पर एक और point remind कर देते हैं, because I'll not be getting on to this tomorrow. ये मेरा जो delta है, ये triangular delta, and the term delta actually comes up from it. Triangular delta को आप lobate या arcuate delta कहते हैं, जैसे कल हमने पढ़ा था मिसिसिपी का डिजिटेट डेल्टा. सो सिनाई डेजर्ट, ईस्टर्न डेजर्ट एंड वेस्टर्न डेजर्ट with Katara depression. This is it from my side for today. I advise all of you to precisely take up the location revision and just add on anything contemporary that you are encountering. I'm talking about every relevant things that have come up into geopolitical resource factor in our learning. And that is the lead that you should take to get on to the revision. Like I have mentioned today, the State of Forest Report 2022 of FAO of United Nations. Just quickly make up the reference of that. What are the important domain that has been demarcated as the causes of depleting forest cover? So bye-bye from my side. See you tomorrow. We'll be taking up consideration of Africa. थोड़ा बल्कि है मेरे ख्याल से कल का सारा समय अफ्रीका पर ही जाएगा. There are some of the important controversial aspects that also has to be done. Okay.